That song is one I used to sing on the morning on my way to work. I would sing that song, or there was another one. It was here. It was right here. But it kind of, it's got a very simplistic message in the idea of making me a servant. And oftentimes, one of the things that we struggle with, or things that, when people come up to me is, how can I serve? Where can I serve? Struggling serving, right? With time commitments, family commitments, all the things that happen. Like, how does one become a servant of God? And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't just happen, all right? It doesn't just, you don't wake up one day and all of a sudden you're serving the King. It's about choices. And I was sitting with, when I went to Meadville, I replaced a man who was preaching there, who made a lot of bad decisions in his life. And those bad decisions caught up to him, and they became exposed. And it wasn't a very pretty sight when it happened. But he was also in the process of passing away. And he was on strong dialysis. 3 or 4 days a week, he'd be in the hospital for hours. And he lived because of that dialysis. And I would go and I would sit with him. And it's interesting to me, with all the bad decisions this man made in his life, you would think he wouldn't have a lot of advice to give. But I found his wisdom to be very sage-like. Now, his wisdom came from, don't do what I did. As a young preacher, it was my first job, first work. He was giving me advice, kind of a Paul to Timothy situation, but a little unique. And then when he was in hospice care, I went out to the hospice house and I sat with him. And he says, I've lived a very easy life because I made choices that were easy then, but I'm suffering them now. And so he told me, make the hard choices now. Do the hard work now. Make sure you put barriers around yourself now. Especially in preaching world, there's a lot of counseling that goes on. There's a lot of, spending time with, other families and people of the opposite sex and all those types of things if you're gathering where I'm going. And he says, do the hard work now. Do the hard work now so one day you won't have to do the hard work that I'm now having to do. Family who's estranged from him, a church family that was estranged from him, living a life that it was a hard end of his last couple years. And so we're thinking about this idea of self-control. What stops you from being the person that you can be? I think everybody, when you're growing up, as a young kid, you have this idealized life for yourself. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and and a lot of it's out of reality, right? Some people become astronauts, not everybody, right? Some people become the people who, solve world hunger, right? But it wasn't me. I had all these aspirations, and then life hit, right? And none of those things really came true. My life is better than I ever expected it to be. But there's a lot of things as a kid, I'm like, man, this is the kind of father I want to be, or this is the kind of Christian I want to be. When I decided to be a preacher, I knew what kind of preacher I wanted to be. Like, I knew, I had an idea in my mind, and the idea in my mind and who I actually am vary. And I look back and I said, Jesse, you've now been doing this almost 15 years. What could you have done differently to be the man you thought you could have been versus the man you are? Now, some areas may be better, some areas worse. But I just think about that. Because I can't wake up tomorrow and undo all that I've done, right? You can't undo it all. You can start over, right? You can start fresh from day one, but things don't magically just change overnight. And so, question is one of the reasons why you put small goals, like where do I want to be in 2 years? Where do I want to be in 3 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Because you can look back, and you can look back in 5 years and go, am I the person, am I doing the things that I set out to do? And if I'm not, what went wrong? And I think a lot of it comes down to this word, self-control. You see, at a young age, you have the ability to have self-control. But there are some actions that you can take and sins you can get into where you're now living a life that is completely out of your control. Once your health goes bad, right? You're out of control. You have to make the change now, right? You have to make the change, do or die, right? When you commit certain sins, there's consequences that come in that you're no longer in control in the way that you thought you could be, right? That's one of the abortion discussions in today's world, which just blows my mind, right? The idea that a person can make a decision that they know leads to certain, I won't say consequences, because I don't see babies as a consequence, but blessings in their life, and they see that as a burden, and now they have a choice, right, to make life, right, or a choice, pro-life or pro-choice. And once again, it can be a complex discussion, but ultimately it comes down to your choices have consequences, don't they? And you have to live with those. And so while you have the ability to make good choices, make them, because someone's going to make them for you eventually. This man wanted to preach up until the day he died, the one I was talking about. Well, because of his choices were made for him that allowed him to never preach again from the pulpit. He said, don't do what I did. But it starts with decisions. Now, oftentimes when we think of self-control, we normally have one real idea in mind. It's either weight loss, right? Some kind of physical activity, or anger. Like a lot of times people, when someone says they struggle with self-control, oftentimes they're thinking of outbursts of anger. But really, self-control is to be able to keep one's emotions and impulses or desires under control. So that's a range of things, isn't it? That can be a range from sadness. It can be a range from joy. That can be passions. That can be lust. That can be whatever falls into that. You have impulses and desires that you need to keep under control. And part of what the Bible really brings out about self-control is the idea of wisdom of God versus the wisdom of the world. You see, you are going to have impulses that you think this is the natural thing to do. Someone punches me, I punch him back, right? Someone hits me, I hit him back. Someone says something bad about me, I say something bad about them back. That is not self-control. That is urges. That is impulses. Your impulse is to retaliate. Your impulse is to, when you see that person walking and it's a good-looking person, to look and linger and think. That's the natural impulse. Self-control is, I know that this person who hurt me, I am not to retaliate back, therefore I put myself under control and I make a different choice than what they made. I don't succumb to my impulse. When I see that good-looking, there's only one good-looking girl in this room to me, so that's easy for me. When I see that good-looking girl walk by, I have to do what? Put myself under control. As Job would say, he made a covenant with his eyes. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? I mean, how many people get caught up in adultery, or how many people get caught up in retaliation? How many people are in prison today because they retaliated against something that someone did to them? Right? How many people ruin relationships because of words and things that are said? Right? All these things. So why? It's easy to say it when everything's going good. But what happens when the emotions are high? What happens when we're in the heat of the moment? What happens when you're, right, you've got all the pressure around you, and you're being pressured from all sides, and you pop? Oftentimes, self-control is learning to abstain as well. Jesus would say, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. The Proverbs would say, there's a lady who lives on that street. He doesn't say, don't go into the house. He doesn't say, don't go up to the door. He says, don't go down the street. You want to stay away from that woman? Don't go near her. Don't put yourself, right, in situations where you know you are weak. And that, well, if I continue to put myself right here, I know my temptation is very high. And so a lot of self-control is actually abstaining, to giving something up that you may enjoy, that you may like, but you know it may not be good for you, it may not be good for your marriage, it may not be good for your family, it may not be good for whatever it may be. So a lot of times self-control is to abstain, right? And a lack of self-control never stands alone. Turn with me to 2 Timothy real quick, chapter 3. Now, we can talk about self-control when it comes to weight. We can talk about self-control when it comes to food choices. And I think it's a holistic approach, by the way. I tell my wife all the time that if I'm struggling in my spiritual life, I'm struggling in my physical life, and I'm struggling in my emotional life. I have to be wholesale. I can't start working out without also dieting. I have to do them both. And I can't start trying to fix the physical aspect of my life without also working on my spiritual aspect of my life. When I'm working on all of it together is when I feel the most whole, and when I feel the most alive, and when I feel the most well. You know what that means? When you feel well, you feel good. You're not perfect. You know you're not making every right choice, but you're working on yourself in every area, and it just feels good. Well, you know what? The opposite of feeling good is feeling bad. You know you could be better. You know you could be choosing different. You know you could have a better life. You could have a better marriage. You could have a better relationship. You could have a better friendship. You could have a better whatever it may be. And you're sometimes one choice away. You're one choice away. A hard choice. A hard choice. Sometimes it's one big sacrifice. You know you got to give this up. If you're going to be good, if you're going to be well, if you're going to do well for yourself and your family, you've got to give this up. And so many families are ruined. One, work can get in the way, can't it? Work can get in the way. There is a difference between providing for your family and being addicted to work. Providing for your family and being addicted to work. Oftentimes, there's a lot of men included in this, especially. They get so addicted to work, they get so addicted to doing the thing because they're accomplishing something. They feel good. It's not always a money. It's not always a money grab. Some people like the work. They like the work ethic. They like what they do, and they strive for it. And they put self-control in this area, but they put all their eggs in this basket, and when they get home, they've got no self-control left for their wife and kids. So it's usually holistic. It's usually not just one thing. But watch this in 2 Timothy 3. Look at verse 1. It says, "But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be..." All right, I know a lot of people who are lovers of self, and they have a lot of self-control when it comes to benefiting themselves. They'll do whatever's necessary for their physical health, right, for their physical well-being. But where's the self-control when it comes to how they talk to other people? Where's their self-control when it comes to how they interact with their wife? It amazes me, people can give up everything, start dieting, food, all the stuff, right? But they can't bring that self-control into every area of their life. If you can do it here, you can do it there, right? So, lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents. Kids, there's that one for you. Ungrateful card goes with that too. Unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without what? Without self-control, brutal and not loving good. You see, we're not just going to talk about self-control in one area. We want to talk about self-control when it comes to your spiritual life, don't we? Because you say, I've got great self-control. I get up every morning, right? I get to work on time, I work good, I come home, I've got a good routine, and I am disciplined. I am disciplined in this area of my life. But what we're going to talk about is, are you disciplined in your spiritual life? Because I'm going to tell you, it's hard. It's difficult, right? Work you've got to do. You miss work, the boss is calling you up and saying, where are you? You miss a paycheck. There is an incentive, isn't there? There's an incentive to be disciplined in work. There's even an incentive. I was watching a video of a guy who was really overweight, right? And he's like, I didn't lose weight to lose weight. He had kids, and he realized just trying to play 15 minutes with his kids, he was out of breath. He says, I did it for them. And there was a post video of him jumping on the couch, jumping over the couch. He got fit because he had incentive. He wanted his kids, 1, to see what a healthy person looks like. 2, he wanted to be able to spend time with his kids and run with his kids and do things with his kids. And 3, he realized that that's the best, for longevity speaking, he could do that. What about our spiritual life? What about praying, reading Scripture? What about trusting in God, talking about God at the home, right? What about serving our neighbors and serving our church community and being a servant and showing our family, right? Unfortunately, many times I can give these warnings to families when they have young kids because parents think they have time. They think they have time. And then one day their kid turns 18, 19, or 20. They leave the house and they're completely gone. And they come to me or elders or other people, what did I do wrong? The time and devotion that you put into everything else but church is now bearing fruit. You made poor choices that you thought were best maybe for their education, maybe for scholarship, maybe for their sports, maybe for their whatever it may be. You made all these sacrifices so that you could be the best, right, baseball player or best musician or best, actor or best whatever it may be, which those are all good things, right? We discipline, we miss things, we have our kids come home and practice, right? We have our kids do all the things, right? Me and Ben, he breathes, eats, and sleeps baseball. Right? He wakes up thinking about baseball, goes to bed thinking about baseball. He's drawing baseball, sports, right? That's what he does. But if I don't also have in a discipline of going to church and praying with him at meals and studying the Bible with him and having people in our homes to study the Bible with us and talking about God and all those other things, then what am I doing? And so there's this lack of self-control doesn't stand alone. It happens to all of us, especially when it comes. Look at verse 4. It says, they're treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid such people. You see, there's coming a time when people would be all about themselves, he's saying. When it would be a self-religion. It'd be a self-society. It'd be a me attitude, a me society, a me, and I'm going to do what's best for me and mine. And oftentimes it comes off religious. It comes off as something that is good. It comes off as I'm doing what's best for my family. And oftentimes it's selfish and it's lovers of pleasure rather than the lover of God. And so, what happens to a church that lacks self-control? By the way, self-control, if you lack self-control, you're lacking the other fruits as well, right? Oftentimes they go hand in hand. It's not like I have one and don't have the other, right? You may be better in one than the other, but they all kind of come together. But you look at the church at Corinth. The church at Corinth were divisive. They were full of division. They could not get along. And what did they divide over? Preachers. They divided over preachers. They divided over who taught them. They divided over what school of thought. They divided over groups. They divided over, right, your group versus my group. And they're suing each other and they're backing each other. Well, this is my buddy, so I got to back him up. This is my buddy. And Paul's kind of like, you got to get rid of that stuff. You're full of division, strife, right? They could not stop fighting. They could not stop arguing. They could not stop getting in each other's business and exposing, right? And they didn't care about each other. Hey, I got a brother here who's struggling with eating with meats. Well, I'm going to invite him over to my house and give him a cheeseburger. Paul says, don't ever eat meat again. Are you not concerned about the well-being of your brother? There's a lot of worldliness, immorality going on in the church, idolatry, and pride. And so here's what Paul's going to do. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I think Paul's going to give us some tools here. Some tools to help us better with our own self-control. And by the way, this comes with every area of your life, but we want to talk about the spiritual aspect this morning. Look at verse 23. This is after Paul's been accused of, right, preaching for gain, though he's taken no money from Corinth. That was self-control. Could he have taken money from Corinth? He says, I could have demanded it from you. You would have been obligated to support me because I was working for the Lord with you. But I didn't. I exercised self-control and I gave up something so that you could benefit. Right? And then he goes on to this long, I became, those who were under the law, I became like under the law. Those who were free, I became free. Those who were slaves, I became like, why? What was his goal in all this? I do all this for the sake of the gospel, just to save some. And so when we're talking about self-control, we have to have a reason. What's your reason for self-control? What's your motivation, right? We'll talk about that guy who had kids. He saw those kids, and he realized they wanted to play with him, and he couldn't play with them. His reason was his children. It's why he did what he did. Paul says, my reason is Jesus. It's salvation. It's the good news of Jesus and the kingdom. The reason why I will exercise self-control and not eat meats for you is because I care more about you and the kingdom than I do about myself. He had a reason. Secondly, keep reading, I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessings. I love that. I love that second part of that I may share with them in its blessings. Do you know Paul was good with God? He was good with Jesus. Him and Jesus were good. He had his encounter with Jesus. He had his encounter. Jesus exposed his sin, he had his sins washed away. He was good. Could he have just said, me and God, we're good. Everybody else, fend for yourself? Couldn't he have? Taken a little more me time, a little more him time. He spent his life for others. Not because he felt this obligation to just serve because he's in ministry. Not because he had this obligation to serve because he's the paid preacher or the paid whatever. He had an obligation because he wants to share in the blessings. It's so much better together, isn't it? It's so much better when we can share Jesus together and you can come. You're like, wow, we've got people of like and precious faith. And that builds a community, so when I'm struggling, or when you're struggling, we're there for one another. When you're rejoicing, I can rejoice with you. You know, oftentimes, it's like, people go through their struggles, and they go through their pain, and they try to do it alone. Has that done anybody any good ever? To struggle alone, to suffer alone, to have nobody to talk to have nobody to share with? Also, imagine receiving an award or receiving this great thing that you've done, and you go to stand up and go, look what I've done, and nobody's there to applaud you. Nobody's there to encourage you. Does that feel good? And so the church is a place where we are there for each other in every stage of each other's life. You know what that takes? It takes self-control. Self-control is, it's not about me, it's about my brother. There are times where it'd be inconvenient for me to show up for you. It's going to be very inconvenient for my family for me to show up for you and to be there for you. But what do I need to realize and think about? Man, when someone shows up for me, how good does that feel? When someone's there for you, how good does that feel? And we can't be selfish and always be on the receiving end. Right? We're always on the receiving end of people's blessings and sharing with us. You know, they're exercising self-control. They probably had something else to do that night. They probably had something else to do besides take your phone call. They were probably in the middle of something and they took yours. Where's the reciprocal? You know, we've been talking about reciprocal stuff in the politics in this world, but where's the reciprocal sharing of blessings? His reason was for Jesus and that there may be as many people who he can share Jesus with. Isn't that a good reason? Isn't that a good reason to exercise self-control? Isn't that a good reason to get yourself whole and okay? Because I'm going to tell you, imagine if someone's hurting spiritually and they need you, but because you have not spent the time honing your own spiritual skills and wisdom, you don't know how to help them. I'm there, I've got the time, but I don't have the tools or the wisdom because I have not had the self-control in my everyday life to be ready to give a response when someone asks, To be ready when someone says, hey, I'm struggling with this in my marriage, or I'm struggling with this in my life, or I've got this sin going on. You're going, I've got nothing for you. I can pray for you. I don't really know what to pray. Besides, maybe God would give you an answer. But imagine being a person who's so steeped in this because you exercise the self-control of maybe even 15 or 20 minutes a day reading your Bible and go, you know what? The Bible has something to say about that. Someone else has struggled with that before. Remember the story of Moses? Remember the story of Elijah? You know the story when Jesus was talking to the leper? Right? You have a tool bag that you have, and so when you're exercising self-control, when someone's there and needs you, you're not going, well, I don't know, let me send you to someone else. We have a reason for ourselves, for our marriages, for our family, but also to one another. Right? We have an obligation. So, verse 24, he says, do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. You ever see people training for a certain, like 5Ks or, marathons and these, Spartan races? They impress me. I get to watch Haley run in my neighborhood. She impresses me. She's beating her brothers out, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing. But it impresses me that we have young people who have the dedication, I want to do something. And they put in the work and the time. They got family to support and remind. They got family who came out and ran with them. Caleb didn't have to do that. But he wanted to support his sister, and he ran with her. It wasn't his goal, it was her goal. And so he ran with her. And I'm very impressed by that. In a church, where are we for each other? Aren't we all running our races? Aren't we all in the race together? Aren't we all trying to go to the same place? It'd be a whole lot easier to run together, wouldn't it? But the time and dedication that people put into these challenges that they do. I remember I wanted to do American Ninja Warrior, way back when I was much less weight on me. I had a little more energy. And I started training for like a week for it. I was like, this is utter nonsense. The grip strength needed, training your grip, that hurts. Just hanging from a tree, I just sit there and hang from a tree. I'm like, I'm a monkey, right? Why am I doing this? But then I watch the people that do it, and I go, I want to do that. But I'm not willing to do this, and this to get there. And so guess what I'll never be able to do? I'll never get past the first stage in American Ninja Warrior because I don't put in the self-control and discipline before. Is there a standard of Christianity that you want for yourself? The kind of person that you want to be? The kind of Jesus follower that you want to be? Don't we all have that idealized version of ourselves? If you don't, think about it. Think about who you really want to be. When things happen, what kind of person do you want to be? Reliable or unreliable? The person who adds to a situation and brings good to it, or the person who's always detracting from it? Well, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be that person. It takes a choice now, right? It takes a choice now. You've got to exercise. You've got to do what's right. He says every athlete exercises self-control in all things. When a person's running, what are they also doing? They're eating well. They're sleeping well, right? They're managing their time. Like, it takes a whole life. It's not just running. Like, if you run and eat, 3 boxes of pizza afterwards, which, I watched a guy the other day pretending he made this treadmill, little bar stool kind of thing, and he had a drink here and a slice of pizza, and he's walking on the treadmill while eating pizza. It's like, you know what? Hey, good for you, man. It ain't going to work out for you, though. You exercise control in all things. It says they do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Verse 26, so I do not run aimlessly. And I think the number one thing that I see in my own life is that we get so caught up in life that we are running the Christian life aimlessly. We don't have goals. If we do, they're short-lived. We don't have a direction we're trying to go. We just hope we get there. I hope one day to be there. I hope one day, but if you don't intentionally do the things right now to be that person, you won't get there. You will not become a runner accidentally. You will not become a weightlifter accidentally. You will not become a Christian accidentally. You will not become a disciple of Jesus accidentally. It makes tough choices, hard choices, but choices you know that are worth it. And as you do, things start working out for you. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air. And then finally, there's sacrifice. I discipline my body. I keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. This is where that good King James Version comes in. I buffet my body. I buffet my body daily. All right, you can either buffet your body, go to China King. Man, I haven't been to China King in a while. And you can buffet. You can feel sick till you eat till you drop, right? Or you can buffet your body, have a little sacrifice, and maybe not get that instant gratification, but you've got that long-term success. You got that long-term, right? And that's what Christianity is. It's a long-term game. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. You're going to mess up. You're going to fall short. And that's why we are doing this what? Together. And so when we come around and go, hey, Jesse, at discipline, you're lacking a little bit of that. You're too much off in this other space. You've got too much time going on in these other things. I should not get mad about that. I should not get upset about that. I should be glad that you care enough to reach out and say, hey, Jesse, you're messing up, man. What are you doing to your family? What are you doing to your wife or your husband? What are you doing to your kids? What are you doing to your church family? We need you. And I try to impress on people all the time, when I talk to people about missing church, and church is just one of those things we do. It's not the only thing we do. But when they miss, they're like, I didn't really feel like it today. I didn't really want to go. I didn't really see the necessity. I was like, well, you ever thought about us needing you? Right? Everyone always thinks, well, I don't need to go today. I don't need anything that Jesse has to offer. He's just saying the same things over and over again. Or what Joe getting up here. I hear the same thing every Sunday or whatever it may be. You ever think that someone may need you? That we're in this together? And that maybe you are a spiritual giant that doesn't need church, doesn't need worship. You are good with Jesus all on your own. Show us how to do it then, bud. Show us how to do it. Be here and be leading by example if you think you are that good with Jesus. Get up front, take those who are under you, and let's do this together. Discipline. There's a phrase, obviously, choose your heart, right? I can choose the easy way now and eat all the food that I want, right? Eat whatever I want, do whatever I want. Guess what's going to happen to me one day? I'm going to suffer. I'm going to have to suffer because I made easy choices now. Spiritually speaking, you think it's any different? When I see people whose lives are falling apart, it didn't just happen one day. It happened over the last 10 years. And sometimes I sat back and watched it happen and go, it's not that bad. I think they'll figure it out. Right? They'll get it going. And then sometimes I'm like, hey man, what's going on? I'm a little concerned for you. Oh, don't worry. I'm just kind of figuring things out. Okay. And then, well, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over a series of choices. You chose your heart. You chose the easy way at the beginning, and it got real hard when things got quick. And now you have to take control, right? Now you have to do things that you didn't want to do. Now you're forced into making choices. Choose your family or not. Choose Jesus or not, right? It's not always going to be easy. Do it while it's easy and under your control. Self-control is a learned behavior, though. Nobody's good at it at first, right? Ask a toddler to wait. We got some babies in here. Hey, why don't you guys just tell your baby to go to sleep at night? Say, hey, go back to sleep. No, it's not going to happen. They don't have self-control. They are reliant upon you. And they're going to tell you they're reliant upon you for 18 years of their life. So, in the church, how do we train up the next generation to have better self-control than we had? We lead by example. Watch. Titus 2, verse 1. But as for you, teach what accords with sound doctrine. Older men are to be sober-minded, dignified, self-controlled, sound in faith, in love, and in steadfastness. Older women, likewise, are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderous, or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good. I want to stop right there for a moment. A lot of times the older generation looks at the younger generation and scoffs. How could they be this, or how are they not doing this? And I ask them, what example are they getting? What example are you giving? Right? You expect them to do something they're not seeing from you. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's the case that these people are doing it, but they're not passing it along. Like, I want someone to be like me. I did this, and when I was their age, at 20 or 30 or 40, and I had kids, I was teaching, and I was doing this, and I was doing that, I was doing this. Right? I heard it. I've heard it. Right? We've all said it. Why can't they just? Someone taught you that. Someone encouraged you in that. My question is, have you passed that down, not just in sarcastic remarks, right? Not just in scoff and fold your hands. Have you brought someone and discipled them and trained them and encouraged them? Because look at the next verse. Their job is to train the young women. Do not accuse young women of not doing something that you have not trained them to do. If you have not trained them to do it, you have no right to accuse them. Now, they have no excuse as well. They can't blame you wholly. They've got their own, but don't be coming at with us these remarks if you have not been actively discipling the person that you are criticizing. That's the church. It's the discipleship model. If discipleship is not here, the older training the younger, it will fail every single time. The church will fail. You'll have a generation that grows up and that does not carry on the work. So train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. Likewise, urge the younger men to be self-controlled, show yourselves in all respects, be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity and dignity, sound speech that cannot be condemned, so that the opponent may be put to shame, having nothing evil to say about us. Do you know who's trying to infiltrate this church right now? The evil one. You know how he does it? He doesn't show up with horns. He doesn't show up as a little devil on your shoulder. He shows up as apathy. He shows up as a passiveness. He shows up of lack of caring. He shows up in division. He shows up in criticism. He shows up in us stopping, loving, and caring, and training each other. That's how he shows up. And he's so good at it, isn't he? Sometimes we don't even know he's doing it until we step back and we go, wow, he's got more control of my life than I thought he had. And it's showing in this area, and this area, and this area, and this area. Look at verse 9. He's going to use this as an example. Bondservants are to be submissive to their own masters in everything, that they are to be well-pleasing, not argumentative, not pilfering, but showing all good faith, so that in everything they may adorn the doctrine of God our Savior. Have you seen a theme here? Who are we trying to glorify? Who is this all for? Who is the one who's getting all the glory? And it's Jesus, isn't it? It's God. And when we don't do these things, guess who we're shaming? We're shaming our God. Look at verse 11. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness, worldly passions, and to live self-controlled. Grace is teaching us to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope and the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify himself a people for his own possession, who are zealous for good works. The fruit of self-control ultimately is a person who is zealous for good works. Not a person who just does it begrudgingly. Not a person who does it grumbling and complaining, but a person who says, put me in, coach. Pick me. I'll be the guy. I'll be the gal. I'll be the person who's here. I'm zealous and I'm ready. That doesn't just happen overnight. That's a training. That's a discipline. That's a preparing your mind, getting rid of sin and temptation. Declare these things. Here's what Titus is told. Declare these things, exhort, and rebuke with all authority. Let no one disregard you. And we're going to go one last place, and then we're going to finish. 1 Peter chapter 4. Self-control is what gives you the tools to be the best servant of God you can be. Watch this. Peter says, the end of all things is at hand. I think we need to keep that perspective in mind, don't we? Do we ever really think about Jesus could come back today? And if he came back today, how would he think about my behavior today, my words today, my actions today, what I did today? All right, if you woke up every day going, Jesus is coming back today, is that going to give you a little fire, maybe a little motivation? All right, just maybe. All right. Therefore, be self-controlled. Right? End of all things are near. Therefore, be self-controlled. And be sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep, and here's where I think the self-control, what it looks like. Loving one another earnestly. That's hard. It's not easy. It's easy to love those who love us. I say this ad nauseum. But Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount says, even the lawless, even the Gentiles, even the sinners, love those who love them. That's easy. That's natural. That's the natural impulse. Of course I'm going to help this person because they've helped me or they're there for me or I'm best buds with them. Of course I'm going to be there for them. I want to know who you are there for, who you're not best buds with. Who may be your enemy. If we can't even love fellow Christians who are not our enemies, they're just not our best bud, how are we ever going to learn to love our enemies? Right? Outside the church, those who are attacking us. Watch, so since love covers a multitude of sins, showing hospitality to one another. Man, I wish he ended right there. Showing hospitality without grumbling. Love one another. Showing hospitality. You know what hospitality is? Making people feel welcome. Making them feel welcome. You know what that means when someone's visiting at church? You get up and you get out of your way to go, hey, what you doing here today? Love to see you part of our community. Where are you from? Tell me a little bit about yourself. That takes 10 seconds. But sometimes it's like, I got to get up off my pew to do it. Yeah, you do. Get up off the pew. It's okay. Your seat will be saved. I guarantee it. And if it's not, someone else will give you their seat, right? We're very sacrificial like that. As a gift, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another. You know, not all of our jobs are going to be the same. Not all of our gifts are the same. We're not all going to serve in the same capacity. But sometimes the self-control, you know what it is to learn, what is my purpose here? What is my reason to be here? What am I good at? And pray to God that he would enlighten you on that. He'd give you the wisdom to know how to use it. Right? I remember when gifts used to be talked about growing up, and I'd sit there and I'm like, preacher, I don't know, man. How can I use hockey, right, for your glory? How can I use the gift of gab? And obviously I'm using that one, not always effectively. But it's like, how can I use this weird random thing? Well, it's not the hockey; it's self-control, right? What does hockey bring out of me? Why am I good? Because I put in the time and the effort. Maybe I can take what makes me good at hockey, right? What makes me good at sports, what makes me good at the things that I'm good at, my intelligence, whatever it may be, and I'm going to rededicate that energy and time to the Lord in serving. Man, there's so many people here who are so talented, and they're thinking, well, I can't use this talent. No, use what gave you that talent. Use the dedication and time that you have in crafting that talent, and craft a talent that will serve the Lord. You've been given a gift, God says. Each one of us, you have a gift. You have a gift. And the Bible would call that a spiritual gift. You have a spiritual gift, and I'm asking you Do you give it freely? Do you use it daily? Or do you keep it to yourself? As good stewards of God, varied grace. Whoever speaks, as one who speaks oracles of God. Whoever serves, as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. To him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. You know what? If you can't do it for your brother, do it for the Lord. If you think there's no way I'm going to do this for this guy because he doesn't deserve it, he doesn't earn it, I don't like him, I don't do it for the Lord. Be self-controlled enough to know that God cares about that person you may not care about. God died for that person just as much as he cared for you. So be self-controlled enough to recognize that there's a bigger story at play than my story. There's a bigger purpose at life than my purpose. There's bigger goals that God has for me than the ones when I was a kid to be an astronaut. You know how cool it would have been to fly into outer space? I mean, just think about it. Think about being in a rocket and actually getting out of the atmosphere and being able to turn around and look back at Earth. I love those videos. I love outer space. I love that idea. Imagine one day soaring to the highest of heavens, being with the Lord, being with Abraham and Moses, surrounded by those clouds of witnesses. You want to talk about assailing? You want to talk about being something? You want to talk about striving for something? You want to talk about becoming something? Become that. Become a person who appreciates what Jesus has done. Be a person who serves the kingdom of God. That to me is the fruit of the Spirit of self-control. And Jesus showed it in his life by he constantly said, what? Not my will, but your will be done. And ultimately, the greatest act of self-control was prayed in the garden. Let this cup pass from me, but not my will be done. And then later that night, the following day, what did he do? He went to the cross to die for those who were shouting what? Crucify him, crucify him, crucify him. And what was his remark from the cross? Lord, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, think about, I know this person hurt you. I know they said things that were mean and upset, but put yourself in their shoe for a moment. Usually when someone's mad and angry and says those things, there's something going on with them. And that takes a lot of self-control to take ourselves away from it and the hurt and pain that they have caused me to think about what's going on with them for them to say something like that to me. That's hard, isn't it? But it removes you from the situation. It removes self, and it puts us in a humble servant place of how can I serve even those who may not want to serve me and help me. So this morning, I want to encourage you this morning, if you're not a Christian, the ultimate sacrifice you can do is to give up the life that you think you want and have and hand it over to God and let him drive the driver's seat. That's self-control. Like self-control, you want to talk about self-control? It's giving up control. Giving up control is one of the hardest forms of self-control. That's why a lot of people can't work for people, right? I'm not going to work for nobody. Why? Because I can't handle someone else telling me what to do. I can't handle someone else telling me what's my priorities. I can't handle someone else giving me, right? I am the captain of my own ship. And giving that up and giving it to God and living a life that you think, it's not the life that I wanted, but it's the life that's going to give me the most fruit and the most fulfillment in this life. Godliness, right? Physical exercise has some benefit. But godliness has benefit not only for this life, but also to the life to come. So if you've not made that choice, why not? Why not come this morning to have your sins washed away in baptism, right? To receive that free gift of God, of grace. And those who are Christians, you know, this was a hard one for me to really figure out how to say. But I think all of us can understand that there's areas of our life that we're struggling in. And if you don't think so, you're never going to get beyond where you're at right now. If you don't think you have any other areas to sacrifice or any other areas to grow in, what level you are at right now, you will never grow beyond. And I don't want you to be comfortable with that. I don't want you to be okay with that. You may be, but God's not looking for you to hit a point and what's the next thing I can do? Right? Well, maybe you can't serve the way you can, but man, there's a whole lot of older people who could be calling a whole lot of younger people and saying, talking and encouraging and training and discipling. There's so much for all of us to do. No matter what age you are, no matter what demographic you are, why not use your gift this morning? Exercise a little self-control, a little discipline, but the benefits will outweigh all of the sacrifices. So this morning, if there's anything that you need, we ask that you come forward as we stand together and sing.